Okay, before Christmas, we were looking at these two reading passages on the ACT, and we were comparing and contrasting them. So the first four questions had to do with just passage A, and then the next three just had to do with passage B. So today we're going to look at the questions that have to do with both passages together. So just a reminder, these passages we're talking about authors and their memoirs. So the first one, an author was talking about her experience with her own memoir. So she says, I gave a reading from my memoir. And in passage B, it's an author talking about Hemingway's autobiography or his own memoir, and how neither of them felt like they were actually factual, actually truth. They were just based on truth. You have to have read both passages to be able to answer questions 28, 29, and 30 because the questions deal with both passages. So 28 says, based on the passages, Gornick's and Hemingway's approaches to writing their memoirs are similar. So I want to focus on the word similar. So what do they have in common? And then we look at our answer choices. F says, put real characters into wholly fictional situations. This is kind of an extreme word that you want to avoid in answers. Words like wholly, only, always, never. Neither of them say that their memoirs are completely fictional. They both say that they're based on some truth. G and H are only in the article about Hemingway. So that's there really to throw you off, because if you've read that one, if you just read passage B, then you might think, oh, okay, yeah, they're both similar. But passage A doesn't address G or H at all. So our answer here is J. Use only material from their lives that serves the story they wanted to tell. So both passages talk about how they wanted to convey a certain story or certain emotion. So they only told things that related to that story or to that emotion. Question 29, based on the passages, it can most reasonably be inferred. So we see this word inferred a lot, and it's just telling us that it's not going to be directly stated in the text. So we're just going to have to make an educated guess based on what both passages are saying. So we can infer that both authors would agree that when it comes to a writer's responsibility to be truthful in a memoir, so something that we think both authors would say, the degree of truthfulness should be the same as that for fiction. They wouldn't say that because they both said the stories they tell are based on truth, based on things that actually happen in their lives. If a writer can't remember the exact details of a certain event, the event should be left out. Neither of them say this. They're not worried about the exact details. They're more worried about conveying an emotion or conveying a story. So the word exact details. So it tells us that that is not our answer. It is more important to create an artistic whole than to relate only to facts. So this is going to be our answer here. So they're just trying to convey a story, convey an emotion, rather than tell facts, but they are including some facts from their lives. And then just let's double check D here. The writer should only include incidents that have documented evidence. Neither of them are concerned with this. They don't talk about the importance of documenting evidence. Okay, so I like to go through and eliminate answers that can't be true. And sometimes you're left with one, sometimes you're left with two answers that sound like they could be good, and then you just have to dig a little bit deeper. And our last question says, another author wrote the following about the role of truth in memoir. So here we're bringing in a third source. So we have passage A and passage B that we've read, and now we have this quote that's going to relate to one or both of them. Which passage most closely echoes, so we're just choosing A or B, the view presented in this quotation? So which one would most agree with this quote? A memoir is a story, not a history, and real life doesn't play out as a story. So we notice F and G choices deal with passage A, H and J deal with passage B. So if you've already decided in your mind, well, I think it's passage A, then you can just see what the two reasons are. Or you don't know, so you want to read all four of the reasons. So passage A, because it offers a story about what happens when you meet someone who doesn't live up to your expectations. This briefly does happen right at the very beginning. She talks about meeting someone who said she was disappointed because she was different than the character in the book. But that's not what the whole point of the passage is about. G says passage A because it stresses that what happens in life is only raw material for a memoirist, which is taken directly from the passage here. So she says here, what actually happened is only raw material. What matters is what the memoirist makes of what happened. So H and J both have reasons for picking passage B. Passage B, because it states that Hemingway viewed A Movable Feast as his literary testament. He does say this, so that one answer is there to throw you off. However, this just kind of explains his motivation for writing. It doesn't really address this quote here, so it doesn't relate to the quote. Okay, and then the last one, passage B, because it states that Hemingway seldom lied about pure facts. The article actually says the opposite. So it says he rarely changed pure facts, but he did if needed. So this one's just incorrect. This one doesn't relate. And then this one isn't really the main idea or anything. So that's why G would be our best answer choice there. So you don't have a lot of time on these reading passages to read. So I would say read quickly, but read well. So you have to be focused, underline things, pay attention to key words because you're going to want to go back to them in these questions. And then just be confident in your answers. Try and take the time to actually find your answers in the text so that you can be fully sure that you're answering the right thing.